Welcome back, and we're very pleased to say that we do have political analyst online, Hlumelo Xaba. We battled for a while to get hold of him, but wonderful to have him back. A very good morning to you. Welcome. And the big news, of course, is the local elections around the corner, and also the announcement that the ANC has unveiled a list of 42 candidates, 42 potential mayoral candidates ahead of South Africa's local government elections. Now, instead of naming its final candidates for the country's 8 metropolitan municipalities, the governing party has released shortlists as it widens its selection process. Time is running out, and do you believe, Hlumelo, that this is a good idea?
A very good morning to you, Julie, and thank you very much for having me. I think that what is currently happening in the ANC now, insofar as them reaching, because to me it appears as though there is a deadlock insofar as who should be chosen as a mayoral candidate in the 8 metros. By now, they were supposed to have announced their mayoral candidates, actually, even before this past weekend, where they were launching their manifesto. If you can look at the top three biggest parties currently, being the ANC, or rather the top four, being the ANC, the MK, the EFF, and the Democratic Alliance. It's only the ANC and the MK which have not yet announced their mayoral candidates in the 8 metros. And if you can look at what is common between these two political parties, you will find that there's a lot of intra-party conflict, whereby people are now fighting each other for positions or for whatever other reason. And I think for the ANC, the one thing now that is actually not that is actually standing in the way or hindering them from announcing mayoral candidates is the intra-party conflict that I was referring to just now. And it's mainly because of the fact that in the ANC, holding a government position is now seen as a way of actually extracting resources or tapping into the resource machinery of the state. So that's where the contest is now, insofar as who is going to have that access and how are they going to channel those resources into the party. And of course, we do know that the ANC's wells are now drying up, and people are now people are now scrambling for resources in order to ensure that they actually benefit themselves and those that are their associates within the party. So I think that's where the real battle is, and that's why we now have a deadlock insofar as them announcing their mayoral candidates.
I'm going to digress here a bit, Hlumelo. We're talking about the ANC trying to get their paws onto state resources. We do know that the past 30 years has indicated their ineffectiveness in governing the country, and the fact that there's been lots and lots of corruption, cadre development, deployment, etc., etc. Can we not say the same about other parties? Does it not suggest that people in power, specifically political power, it's all about what they can lay their hands on? We know the scandal that broke last week with the DA. And we're talking about what, 4 billion rands, money that has been siphoned, and we kind of wonder how much of damage that has done. The DA thought that they'd done the correct thing by removing the said person, from his position, but the damage has been done. So I'm saying this in context to what you've just said about the ANC wanting to keep their position and their pause on all of state resources. How do you see this? And you've mentioned 4 big parties, 4 top parties. Don't you think they all have the same agenda? Wanting to be in control, wanting to, to fill their coffers?
Well, I think what is becoming more and more clear now is that all of these political parties are homogeneous insofar as what is it that they want to do when they're in power. With the DA scandals now that have been breaking out, it's not just the recent one now in relation to the 4 billion. You'd remember that in an interview, John Steenhuisen actually did, I would say, in layman's terms, throw Tony Leon under the bus insofar as some of the alleged scandals that he was involved in pertaining to tenders. So I think that what we're coming to realize is that political parties generally, or politicians, want to tap into the resource machinery of the state, not to actually bring about development, but to actually siphon those resources to them for themselves and for their associates. It's what I always make an example for with the ANC as well. If you can look at previous instances, for instance, in relation to ANC conferences, you will find that what used to be a determinant of who should be an ANC leader used to be that person's posture and where the country is at that moment and the kind caliber of an individual that the party would need to actually grow its support and to bring about development. But fast forward to where we are now, what we realize is that it's all about scrambling resources, and it's all about who do we put there in order to benefit not just the party, but to benefit people, associates that are within the political party, for them to benefit. So I think that's where the major problem is in South Africa, or rather with the political system generally.
Very sad reality for us here in South Africa. We're all waiting with bated breath for the local elections. But I kind of get a sense that we're going to get a lot of the same old, same old, same old, meaning there's going to be continued corruption in politics, and the monies that is meant for the people on the ground, for infrastructure development, for education, healthcare, etc., is not going to be channeled in those directions. How do you see the picture going forward? Is there any party at all that is ethical enough? And the sad reality is, if we do identify an ethical party, the people on the ground don't necessarily see it as you and I do. You know, they just go where and who promises them food parcels, grants, etc., etc.
I think the sad reality is just a lack of a moral authority generally from the leaders that we have in our country on like I said, on a generic basis, where you'll find that there is a lack of, like I mentioned, moral authority and a lack of ethics and integrity. These are the most basic things I think that I believe, and I believe that some people may also share the same sentiment, that a leader should embody in order for them to be able to lead adequately, and in this instance to deliver to the needs and the needs of the people that they are leading. But over the past decade, or let me just say over the past 20 years in South Africa, what we've been witnessing is a political elite that actually does less for its people and just benefit itself, of which is something that is not just happening in South Africa. If you can look across the continent and even across the world for that matter, you will see that this phenomenon has been widespread, and it has been going on and on for quite some time now. So I think the general problem that we have is a political elite that does not really that does not really have the interest of the people at heart, but just want to benefit themselves and their associates, not just within the organizations they come from, but associates that are outside of the state. So we are seeing currently what is happening in the Madanga Commission as to how this phenomenon is playing itself out, where those that are in the state are using their positions to actually benefit their associates outside of the state. And even with the tender system, for instance, I heard the president when he was actually articulating outlining the manifesto yesterday, that the ANC, when it comes to tenders are still going to be there, and that they must just be done in a manner that is fair, in a manner that is transparent, etc. Of which goes to show that there isn't really an intent to expand state capacity to do some of these things. And the tender system is something that came under this democratic, well, it's been there before, but we do know that it's something that has actually been very detrimental to our society and to the political system. So it's some of these things that you look at and you actually realize that some of these problems are still going to be there until there is somewhat of a change in policy.
The sad reality is, as you and I speak, and when we look at what's happened over the past 30 odd years here in South Africa, we do know because of corruption that monies that were meant for the rebuilding of South Africa has been whittled away, and the country is in a state of degradation, unbelievable degradation. You also talk about corruption not only on the continent, but possibly globally. And I'd just like to add something there. Even in Western countries and even in one of the superpowers, and that's the United States, Donald Trump is a billionaire in his own right, but he still continues enriching himself in any which way he can. And that too is a form of corruption, having all of his family serving in government positions as well. So yeah, it's very widespread, and it's all about what's in it for me. But let's wrap up with, because I do understand you have a time constraint. Am I correct?
We can continue.
Okay, great. Let's look at this. You know, where do we stand now with the current position with the ANC looking at this 42 name pool that they have, and how they're going to whittle it down, how they're going to get to their final mayoral candidates as they prepare, obviously, to contest some of South Africa's most politically competitive municipalities. And even when they do get their people in, the people that have been disappointed, is there not a chance that they will sabotage the candidates that are put in place in these different municipalities?
Well, what I always say is that the ANC has now reached a point where they have a succession crisis, not just within the party, but in terms of who they deploy in government, in the sense that the pool of people that they have now is not really the kind of people that you would want to have, or rather the kind of people that are credible enough to lead municipalities, or even to lead wards for that matter. I think all of that is happening. Part of what is happening now, ensuing in them not being able to announce a candidate, is precisely because of the fact that there is a leadership crisis within the party. And as a matter of fact, they do not really have an idea, whether they don't have an idea, but there are a lot of patronage politics that are at play here, insofar as who gets to be deployed and who gets left out. Remember now that the ANC is also going to its leadership, to its national elective conference next year. So all of what is happening now is also trying to consolidate our people, trying to consolidate their bases in these particular metros to ensure that they have control over them. Because you must remember also that it's the national leadership now that determines who is going to be the leader of who's going to actually be a mayor in the metros, as opposed to the traditional style whereby it's branches that get to choose who becomes the mayor and all of that. So that alone does actually go to show that there is some level of control that the national leadership seeks to have over these metros, mainly because of the fact that there is an elective conference that is happening next year, and people, like I mentioned, will want to consolidate their bases in these big cities and to ensure that they have control over them, those that have interest, rather, in leading the party. But I think that the central thing, a central part of all of this, is the fact that there is a leadership, there is a succession crisis in the ANC, and they have reached, in my view, a cul-de-sac insofar as succession is concerned, because of the fact that the ANC also lacks a lot of public, there's a lot of public distrust and a lot of credibility that is engulfing it. So all of these things, so if you actually put all of these things together, they just give you a party that is in a crisis and a party that goes into the election being at the back foot.
Hlumelo, my final question then to you is, will it make a difference? Will it make a difference, an actual difference, a positive difference to the different metros by whom the ANC, elects? Would it make a difference at all which party's mayor comes in? Is it going to make a meaningful difference to us, the people on the ground, who the mayors will be in these major metros, to get the metros back onto its feet? Look what's happening in Johannesburg. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I can't believe the rot and the corruption I see around me. This was once, the city of gold, but now it's the city of rot. So how do you see all of this playing out? Because it seems right across the board, we started this conversation by talking about most of the political parties, unless you can name one who you believe is squeaky clean and who could, govern the metros and eventually the country in a very honorable and ethical way?
Well, one thing we should realize also is that we are now in an era of coalitions, meaning that there is no political party, at least in 6 of the 8 metros, that is going to get an outright majority. I think the metros which are where we are likely to see an outright majority, even though it may be one that is that is not as much as it used to be in previously, is Cape Town as well as Buffalo City in the Eastern Cape. When it comes to the other 6 metros, which are already hung, by the way, I don't see any party that is going to get an outright majority. In eThekwini, the MKP may actually be very central role players, mainly because of the numbers that they managed to amass in the 2024 general election, because they got about 40 something percent, which make them the largest party if those statistics are anything to go by. But I think the core principle here is that when it comes to coalition governance, political parties need to adopt a program of action that is going to focus mainly on good governance and the delivery of services to the residents, and also have an idea, or rather have an idea of a practical ideas of how they can improve the livelihoods of those residents, particularly in Johannesburg, which has probably been the most unstable metro over the past 10 years, including Nelson Mandela Bay, for instance. So to say which party is going to do a good job or not is neither here nor there, because there's no party that's going to get an outright majority in any case. I think in this instance, even the coalitions bill is an instrument that also becomes very critical in these discussions, because and it's just a pity that if you can look at it, I know that the government said that they want to adopt it before the elections, but that is something that is impractical considering the various stages that the bill still needs to go to. So I don't think that we will have a proper framework that is central, that is going to actually ensure that there is proper governance and stability in the metros before the election, mainly because of the fact that this bill still needs to undergo a lot of stages before it gets signed by the president. So I think that's the main thing which political parties now need to establish. There needs to be a mutual relationship based on shared interests and the needs that are on the ground.
Finally, do you feel that coalitions can and will continue to work for us, rather than one party that gets the majority vote? Do you think coalitions is the way to go? Because we do know coalition governments do work well in other parts of the world. Why are we still experiencing problems in South Africa? Is it because it's a new concept for us?
Well, it's a bit of both, because you would know that South Africa, we had not really had coalition governments on a large scale until the 2016 local government election. So it is somewhat still of a new concept, and now it has actually transcended to a provincial and a national level, because we do know that there are 2 provinces now, provincial legislatures, being Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, that are governed through a coalition, and even our national government is actually governed through a coalition. So this is somewhat still of a new concept that still needs a lot of maturity from the different political parties. And I think that coalitions can work, but we just need to have proper checks and balances, as well as proper legislative instruments that are going to govern them, and also to have some form of maturity from the political parties, because they are the main stakeholders when it comes to coalition governments.
Hlumelo Xaba, political analyst, thank you indeed for your insights today. Lovely talking with you. Till the next time, as always, God bless.
Thank you.
8:45 exactly. This is News and Views moving along. Please stay with us. We still have our second hour coming on, and that, of course, is brought to you with compliments by African Muslims agencies. And in that hour, we will also take a listen to the Fired Up series with Hafiz Imran Chunara.
We work